Wishbone, the PBS show about a Jack Russell Terrier introducing kids to the world of classic literature in the late 90s on PBS. Sure, we had LeVar Burton telling kids to read,
but you don't have to take my word for it.
Heck, even Arthur the Talking Aardvark told kids that having fun isn't hard if you've got a library card.
Having fun isn't hard when you've got a library card.
But there's something about a Jack Russell Terrier telling children to read 300 plus pages of classic literature that's particularly compelling. Heck, if Wishbone told me to do my summer reading in high school, I may have actually done it. Okay, I did it anyways, but I would have been more motivated if Wishbone told me. I loved Wishbone as a kid, and even rediscovering the show years later as an adult, I still enjoy it. And because I enjoy it, I'm going to talk about it on my YouTube channel. Try and stop me. The basic format of a typical episode of Wishbone is split into two. The first part takes place in the present, in other words, the 90s. Wishbone is a Jack Russell Terrier who lives with his family, the Talbots. Joe is a middle school boy who hangs out with his friends Sam and David, and Ellen is Joe's widowed mother and a librarian. We as the audience are privy to Wishbone's innermost thoughts, while the other characters are not. Each episode involves Joe and his friends getting into some kind of hijinks, which reminds Wishbone of a classic work of literature, transitioning into the second part of the episode, which features Wishbone as the main character or prominent supporting character in that story, and in which the other characters can understand him. Today, I'll be talking about one episode, and since I spend a lot of time talking about sci-fi on my channel, it only makes sense to start with Bark to the Future. No, this isn't Wishbone as Marty McFly, but instead the highlighted book is The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, which I read years ago and don't really remember a whole lot about it other than it was pretty short and told as one giant monologue. 90s kids, prepare to be nostalgic. We start on Wishbone's fixation on food and a scientific train of thought, like a college student who missed lunch studying for that physics final.
This is the problem of time. I'm hungry now, but snack time is later.
Snack time, Wishbone.
Wishbone runs to the kitchen to get his favorite treat, ginger snaps. However, he is only given 3.
No, Wishbone. You know the rules. 3 snaps a day, 1 box a week.
But the math doesn't quite add up for Wishbone, for you see, he's not only a dog who indulges in classic literature, but he can do math as well. As you can see, there are 22 ginger snaps in a box, and at 3 snaps a day for 7 days in a week, that's 21 snaps and 1 snap unaccounted for.
What's happening to that extra snap? Ellen! And to think I trusted you!
No joke. As a kid, I probably did think that Ellen ate the extra ginger snap, but I'm an adult now. And I still don't know what happened to that snap. Sucked into a wormhole, lost in some temporal rift, Ellen's just holding out on Wishbone. It could be anything, really. But look who's home from school. Joe! And he's brought Sam and David along. Apparently they had a math test and, well, see for yourself.
C-.
Lady, he passed! C- is a passing grade.
If you don't make a B on your report card, I can't let you try out for basketball.
I mean, sure, he won't be a math whiz, but he can ride that basketball scholarship all the way into college. Well, Joe's gotta get his grades up in 2 tests, so David gives him his extra calculator.
Mr. Delgado says we should get used to using them. It's required in high school.
Really?
Not to mention, they'll literally come equipped on every cell phone, and you literally won't have to be without one.
A calculator is not going to solve all of your problems. It's just a tool.
But Joe only vaguely heeds Ellen's words of advice because of his fascination of the calculator.
Look, this one has a special button for percent.
Because Joe's upgrading from his abacus to a calculator, Wishbone is reminded of a story that involves a machine that can send people through time. Can't remember the name, though.
The Time Machine.
Oh, those 90s effects. I love it. Wishbone becomes the nameless protagonist of the story, known only as the Time Traveler. No, not the Traveler, not even the Blues Traveler. Time Traveler. He debates the possibility of time travel with the leading scientists of the day, who don't believe him.
Well, clearly, they have not seen my time machine.
I still don't believe in time travel.
The hell you don't.
And that's when Wishbone found himself on the Department of Temporal Investigation's watch list.
17 separate temporal violations, the biggest file on record.
Man was a menace.
Blast off!
So now it's the year 802701. Yeah, that's right, he even overshot the Dune timeline. And he meets some rejected aliens from the original Star Trek.
Thank you very much, but I imagine you'd like to know who I am? I certainly didn't expect a nation of giggling florists.
Who really don't seem to mind that a dog is walking around. Back in the real world, Joe is barely taking notes in his math class while Poindexter here is giving the lesson. Meanwhile, Joe's asking the important questions.
Mr. Delgado, can we use a calculator during the test?
Oh, girl, don't you dare roll your eyes, you were thinking it too. And yet again, Joe is reminded.
The calculator is only a tool.
It's just a tool.
It's not a problem solver. You are the problem solver. Your mind is like a muscle, Samantha. You need to challenge it. Otherwise, it weakens.
Meanwhile, Joe has his priorities straight because Joe doesn't have to study. He's got a calculator.
Oh, that must be the pizza.
Pizza time.
I ordered out for us.
So Ellen tells Joe to pay the pizza guy and give him a 15% tip.
It's, $10 even.
$10 for a whole pizza? With extra toppings? Boy, the 90s were a wondrous time. $10 even is pretty easy to figure out, but what about that crazy 15% tip? Not to worry though, Math Whiz Joe clearly has it under control.
15 cents.
No.
$15?
Yeah.
Okay, we gotta address this. Sure, Joe is a dumb kid who doesn't know 15% of $10 is $1.50. But come on, guy! You're literally going to take $25 for a pizza in the 90s?
Yeah.
You're literally going to let this dumb kid give you a 150% tip?
You know, we're living in a society. We're supposed to act in a civilized way.
Joe leaves a negative Yelp review. Pizza Kid is a jerk. He took a 150% tip from me. At least that's what my mom said. So Joe is going backwards despite having new technology, and we haven't even introduced him to social media. Meanwhile, in the future, there's no war, no one gets sick, nobody works, and everyone has assumed room temperature IQ.
I am Weena. You are man.
Lady, that's a dog. At least the library is still standing. Heck, even Shakespeare's works survived this far into the future.
Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day, to the last syllable recorded time, and all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death.
It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
No! No!
Well, this future is far too depressing for the time traveler, so he goes back to his time machine and...
Gadzooks! The time machine! It's gone!
You sure it's not cloaked?
Everybody remember where we parked.
Well, it turns out the Morlocks, or slightly more accurately, Wesley Crusher's girlfriend's governess, stole the time machine, effectively stranding the time traveler in one of the darker timelines. Now the year is test day, and Joe's got this under control. Word problems? Well, not to worry, Joe 15% Talbot has his handy-dandy calculator ready.
I don't have my calculator.
Or not.
You know this stuff's solid.
A few moments later.
Holy cow! This isn't bad. It's a disaster.
Remember the good old days when Joe was bringing home C minuses? Remember when you guilted him into doing better and he resorted to using a calculator, Ellen? You remember that?
It's just a tool.
Joe insists he can pull up his average with one more test, which I question because if you've done terribly the entire semester, is one test really going to make a difference? But okay, whatever. But he just needs his calculator.
Calculator's only a tool.
Which he should assume that he lost it and not that it broke. Take an afternoon to look for it. But Mom's got an idea. Next door neighbor Wanda, a recurring character on the show, is having a yard sale, so she'd be willing to pay a kid who can't do basic math to help her out. Well, maybe he'll just help set up, or maybe even lift stuff. Cashier!
I'm paying you 10% of the sales.
Oh great, we all know how good Joe is at percentages.
Oh, sorry, there's no calculator.
Well, now the pressure's on.
Man, now listen, I don't have much time, so I'm gonna walk you through this. This jacket is 10% off. This tie, 30%. These gloves, 40%.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I checked out when he said the tie was 30% off.
This jacket's 10%?
Yeah, that's right, 10% off the ticketed price. Look, kid, I'm really in a rush.
Actually, I am too.
Seriously, these people are hounding a kid like that? Both these people should lighten up a little. I mean, sure, Joe can't figure out something as simple as moving the decimal over to calculate 10% quickly, but let's put the blame where it belongs. Wanda, this is all your fault.
Everything's under control.
Damage report! Casualty reports coming in from all over the ship!
Back in 802701, no, that isn't a Stargate planet name, the time traveler's going to try to MacGyver his way back to his time machine by raiding some nearby buildings for supplies.
This is the progress of humanity.
Weena is, of course, afraid of the dark, and for good reason.
Lux no light.
So the time traveler gets an idea.
Matches and camphor.
He's going to A-team his way out of this? Sweet! Nice transition there.
10%? What's the problem?
The problem is Joe can't do basic math and he's been put in charge of the money! Again, Wanda, this is your fault. Even Wishbone can't watch this anymore, so he brings over a very convenient sign to Joe.
That's a fraction?
Yes! How do you not know this, Joe? What do you do in math class all day? Honestly, I'm not sure how converting a percent to a fraction makes this easier. You really should convert it to a decimal and multiply.
This jacket is $25. Just move the decimal point one space to the left and voila.
Or that.
I hate to interrupt math class, but...
No sweat, my man. Joe's suddenly a math genius. Which I kind of find hard to buy, but the show is only half an hour long, so... Running with fire through a forest in 802701, the time traveler makes his way to the time machine. Well, there goes that idea.
Rise, son! Rise!
Good morning, starshine. The earth says hello.
And now the time traveler has his opportunity to go for broke and get his time machine back. Theorizing that one could travel within his own lifetime, Dr. Wishbone stepped into the Quantum Leap accelerator and vanished. Back in the 90s, Joe can finally do basic math. And for a day's work, Joe gets...
$21.87.
I mean, I know this is the 90s, but that seems a little low for one day's work, doesn't it? And what predictably shows up at the end of the episode?
My calculator!
So Wishbone hid the calculator to teach Joe a lesson because...
Calculator's only a tool.
But hey, at least Joe has his calculator and an extra $20+. I'd say that's a pretty big win. And with the conclusion of Joe's math woes, we get the conclusion of the time machine.
The time traveler returned home, only to vanish once again into the future. We can only wonder, will he ever return?
But at least Wishbone is getting his ginger snaps. All 3 of them. Joe returns from school with a math test and...
A-.
Oh, congratulations!
Joe's feeling so good that he's even stopping off at the grocery store to pick up Wishbone's snacks.
But this time, I checked the unit price.
Okay, now you're just showing off, Joe. We get it, you're a mathematician. Of course, Joe's sudden genius is Wishbone's gain because he found out that buying in bulk can save you money on ginger snaps. Which is why Sam's Club exists. Of course, now Wishbone thinks he's getting 12 snaps a day, but all's well that ends well.
Yeah, 12 snaps a day? Wow! In 40
better for Ellen, and I mean it, just 4. Ellen, just 4.
And that concludes Bark to the Future, and even years later as an adult, I still enjoy this episode. I read The Time Machine years ago, but to be honest, I remember the episode of Wishbone better than the actual short story. Sure, the show is probably aimed towards kids, but it doesn't feel as kiddish as other kids' shows. It's more of a show where the entire family could sit down and watch it together and not completely hate themselves. Take the real-life story of the episode. It teaches a lesson to kids about not relying on technology to do your work for you, and that you have to understand the principles behind something like math before a calculator can actually help you. But the adults watching this might be reminded of how they were when they were kids and wanted to use a calculator in a math test. Not to mention that their kids are sitting down to a show that's teaching them a good lesson. Whether you're a parent looking for a show to introduce to your kids that'll teach them about classic literature and good life lessons, or you're a 90s kid looking for that nostalgia trip, you'll want to check this one out at your local library.
Books can take you anywhere, so open one up to start your journey.
So what do you think? Did you watch Wishbone as a kid? What were some of your favorite episodes? Would you like to see me tackle more episodes? If you're completely new to the show, what are some classic works of literature you would have liked to have seen a Jack Russell Terrier tackle? Or maybe you just want to say how cute Wishbone is. Please leave a comment. As always, thanks for watching my video. If you like what you see, give me a like and subscribe to my channel. Tell your friends! Until next time...
I still don't believe in time travel.
The hell you don't.